If you're wondering how this innocent kid went from this to looking like this,
I am a ghoul.
well, the answer is pretty simple. Life generally sucks. And it sucks even more if you live in a world where scary-eyed monsters depend on human flesh to survive. This is the scary reality that faces Ken Kaneki, the main character in the anime series Tokyo Ghoul. Does he have what it takes to suffer through this morbid world? Guess we'll have to find out. Just a warning though, things will get brutal. So without further ado, let's dive in. Episode 1 is called Tragedy, and it opens up with a gruesome scene. A female ghoul has made her way onto the top floor of a skyscraper, and now she's happily feasting on everyone unfortunate enough to cross her path. So ghouls are basically just human-looking monsters who eat nothing but human flesh. Anyway, the ghoul doesn't get too far into her meal when another, much larger male ghoul appears and informs her that he has been ordered to capture her alive. He clearly underestimates her though, because she quickly escapes, stealing his weapon in the process. The next day, we get introduced to a bookworm college freshman. Yup, this is our very own Ken Kaneki, as he sits in his favorite coffee shop called the Inteku Cafe, with his childhood friend Hideyoshi, or Hide. But Kaneki isn't there just for the coffee. He is waiting on his crush Rize Kamashiro, who also loves coming there just as much as Kaneki. He is dying to ask her out, so when he discovers that they both love the same author, they make plans to visit the bookstore together. The date goes great. They bond over literature, go to lunch, and then to the bookstore. At the end of it all, Rize even asks Kaneki if he could walk her home, because she lives where all the ghoul attacks have been happening. Of course, being a gentleman, Kaneki agrees, but things take a sharp left turn after that. Yeah, it was all too good to be true for a while, wasn't it? As they reach Rize's stop, Kaneki finds out, very painfully, why Rize hadn't been eating anything at lunch. Because, of course, the only thing ghouls can eat is human flesh. It turns out Rize was the binge eater we had seen at the start of the episode. However, just as she was about to turn Kaneki into her next victim, a large iron beam falls on top of her, taking her out instantly. Kaneki couldn't care less about that though, because her bite had left him severely injured. Our boy here was practically floating in and out of consciousness as paramedics rushed to the scene. After all that drama, Kaneki wakes up in a hospital with a half Kakugan, which is the red eyes that all ghouls have. Why? Well, because he received organ transplants from Rize, all so the doctors could save his life. Kaneki doesn't know this at first, but after noticing that he has no appetite for normal food, he began testing himself. He begins to panic after realizing he has all the characteristics of a ghoul, such as an indestructible stomach and zero appetite for normal food. So he decides to hide out in his apartment, which doesn't help much because his cravings for flesh drive him out into the public and right into another ghoul who is eating a corpse. As the ghoul offers Kaneki a bite of this very tasty meal, they both get beat up by another ghoul who claims authority over the area. However, not long after that, Kaneki gets saved by Tuka, the waitress at his favorite coffee shop, who is also, surprise surprise, a ghoul. Tuka tells him to finish the corpse the other ghouls had been fighting over, but Kaneki refuses as he's still half human, and he can't stomach the idea of eating a dead person. This doesn't faze Tuka though, who runs up and forces a piece of dead flesh into Kaneki's mouth. Yikes! Episode 2, titled Incubation, picks right back up in the alleyway. Yoshimura, who is a ghoul and the owner of the Inteku Cafe, stops Tuka from beating up Kaneki. Yoshimura then asks Kaneki to come back with him to the cafe. Back at the cafe, he reveals to Kaneki that the shop is actually a hideout for the ghouls in the 20th Ward, which is the name of the area Kaneki lives in. He then shows Kaneki how to down his urges for flesh by drinking coffee, which is the only human food ghouls can eat without getting sick. After some time, Kaneki returns to school with an eye patch to cover up his Kakugan because he can't control it fully. Hide, his best friend, is happy to see him but notices how pale Kaneki's skin is and tells him to eat more. Hide then asks Kaneki to follow him to visit Nishio, an upperclassman that he had met on campus. Much to his shock, Kaneki finds out that Nishio is actually the ghoul who had him beat up in the alley earlier that week. As they meet, both ghouls act casual, but when Nishio invites Hide to his place, Kaneki quickly offers to join, suspecting it's a trap and that Nishio plans to eat Hide. Turns out, Kaneki was absolutely right. The moment they let their guard down, Nishio attacks them both and knocks Hide unconscious. As he's getting beat up by Nishio, Kaneki gets a flashback of his lifelong friendship with Hide, remembering that Hide was the only person he had after his parents died. This emotional moment finally unleashes Kaneki's Kagune, which is the organ ghouls use to fight or hunt. Kaneki then completely mauls Nishio, despite having zero fighting experience. But Kaneki hasn't eaten any flesh since Tuka fed him in the alley, and now the hunger is back, even stronger than before. Kaneki loses control and is only moments away from eating Hide until Tuka shows up just in time to stop him. Honestly, the way she keeps popping up to save Kaneki needs to be studied. For now though, both Kaneki and Hide are safe and recovering back at the Enteiku Cafe under Yoshimura's care. At Enteiku, Yoshimura comforts Kaneki because Kaneki thinks that being a half-breed means he doesn't belong in either world. Yoshimura reminds Kaneki that he belongs to both the human and ghoul worlds, assuring him that he is not alone. And after that, he also offers Kaneki a job at the cafe. Just before the episode ends though, we meet Mado Kureo, this guy right here with the crazy eyes, along with Kotaro Amon. These guys are top investigators from the Commission of Counter Ghoul, or CCG for short. Investigators at the CCG are called Doves, and they have one single task: kill all ghouls. Their team is made up of humans who have been trained to track down and fight ghouls. Plus, there are CCG buildings in every ward in Tokyo, so that they can respond quickly to ghoul sightings or attacks. Of course, this wouldn't be a fair fight for the humans if they can't keep up with the ghoul's speed or strength. So all CCG investigators are given weapons called Queen-K. A Queen-K is made from the Kagune of a dead ghoul and has the ability to puncture a ghoul's skin. But if a Queen-K isn't enough to stop a ghoul, then an Arata should do the trick. This is basically a full body armor that increases a human's physical abilities. There is one drawback though. An Arata uses the blood of the person wearing it, so investigators really only use it if they have no choice. Well, now that Mado has found the weapon Rize took from the ghoul who attacked her in episode 1, he and Amon are now tracking him down. This should be interesting. The next episode, called Dove, introduces us to Yamori. Yup, the male ghoul who tried fighting Rize in episode 1. Yamori loves torturing people, so it's no surprise that he's a big fan of Jason Voorhees from the movie Friday the 13th. Yamori even wears the same mask that Jason wears in the movie, so the CCG has nicknamed him Jason from the 13th Ward. Well, Yamori hasn't been able to torture anyone after Rize stole his torture device at the skyscraper, so he goes off to get it replaced. This is where we meet the peaceful ghoul family of Dr. Fueguchi, his wife Ryoku, and their daughter Hinami. Yamori has been getting torture devices from Dr. Fueguchi for a while now, mostly because he threatens to kill Dr. Fueguchi's family if he doesn't get what he wants. But this time is different, and Dr. Fueguchi can sense Yamori isn't just here to get tools, so he sends his wife and daughter to Enteiku for safety. Back at the CCG, things are getting intense now that Mado and Amon have been put in charge of the 20th Ward. This is mainly because of Rize's binge eating at the skyscraper, and Jason being spotted around the area. Meanwhile, at Enteiku, Yoshimura introduces Kaneki to Yomo, who brings Kaneki on a scavenger hunt for food. Basically, they go to a certain mountain where persons who no longer wish to stay on Earth come here to take their last breath. Yikes. Well, at least it's a lot better than killing random humans. But things are about to get a whole lot harder now that Mado and Amon have started wreaking havoc on ghouls in the 20th Ward. This causes Yoshimura to ask Tuka to bring Kaneki to Uta, so he can make a mask for Kaneki. Uta is a strange ghoul who enjoys spending his free time making the best masks for ghouls all around. The masks protect ghouls' identities so they can't be tracked by the CCG doves. Anyways, things are looking up at the cafe now that Kaneki and Hinami have become good friends. Hinami also loves the same author as Kaneki, so he starts helping her to learn the words in the book, which pleases Tuka. But she will be damned before she admits that. But just as things start to feel normal again, a familiar face drops into the cafe that changes the whole mood. And not for the better. Episode 4 is called Supper, and it reveals the person who popped into the cafe in the last episode. Ah, it's Tsukiyama. Not the guy you want to see if you plan on having a good day, that's for sure. You see, Tsukiyama is what is known as a kakuja in the TG universe, and kakuja are basically cannibal ghouls. Knowing this, Tuka tells Kaneki to be careful after Tsukiyama takes an interest in him. The warning falls on deaf ears though, because when Tsukiyama visits Kaneki at school to invite him to a coffee date, Kaneki agrees only because he doesn't want to hurt Tsukiyama's feelings. Jeez. After what happened with Rize, you would think he would learn to stop going on dates with purple-haired baddies. Anyway, that night after a hard training session with Yomo, Kaneki goes to a bar where he learns some more lore about his kind. According to Itori, the owner of the bar, there is a rumor of another one-eyed ghoul whose Kakugan is on the opposite side that Kaneki has his. As it turns out, half-bred ghouls are far superior to full-blooded ones. Who would have guessed? Kaneki also learns that someone was on the rooftop of the building Rize was killed in just before she was about to eat him. After that, Sunday rolls around and Kaneki goes on his coffee date with Tsukiyama. Naturally, Kaneki asks him about his friendship with Rize, which pisses off Tsukiyama so much that he breaks his coffee cup. When Kaneki sees this and tries to help him, he cuts his finger. Of course. Because he is a cannibal, Tsukiyama jumps at the opportunity to get some of Kaneki's blood on his handkerchief and takes it to the bathroom so he can,
Such a tender and mellow harmony.
Yeah, Tsukiyama's not just 100% ghoul, he is 100% freaky too. After whatever that was, Tsukiyama invites Kaneki over to his mansion to shower and gives Kaneki new clothes. And then we find out that he was actually dressing Kaneki up for his underground fight club. Basically, he lures humans into his home and he has them killed live for other high society ghouls to enjoy. But when Kaneki defeats the giant inbred monster butcher they sent out to kill him, Tsukiyama stops the fight once he realizes that Kaneki is actually a half-ghoul. But don't think this is where it ends, because this guy has a few tricks up his sleeve for our boy Kaneki. Episode 5 is called Scar. We catch up with the Enteku squad as Yoshimura asks Kaneki to pay Tuka a visit since she called in sick. In order to make her human best friend Yoriko happy, Tuka has been selflessly eating the cooked food Yoriko brings her at lunch. This, of course, makes her sick, but she obviously can't reveal to Yoriko why she hasn't been eating as much at lunch. Things get really awkward though when Yoriko brings food for Tuka and sees Kaneki there as well. Yoriko isn't sure what to think, so she just leaves the food with Tuka and dips. Meanwhile, someone else who has their mind on Kaneki, Tsukiyama, hasn't given up just yet. Still, he knows Kaneki will never trust him again, so he comes up with a plan to lure Kaneki into a trap. Basically, Tsukiyama plans to kidnap someone close to Kaneki to use as bait, and when Kaneki comes to rescue them, well, Tsukiyama is gonna have his way with our boy. Ew. So he starts spying on Kaneki to see who is the most important person in his life. As fate would have it, Kaneki decides to meet up with Nishio's girlfriend, Kimi. Nishio hasn't been doing so well after his fight with Kaneki. The stomach wound Kaneki gave him just won't heal, which means Nishio hasn't been eating and is getting weaker every day. So Kimi begs Kaneki to help her man before he dies of hunger and whatnot. But what these two don't know is a freaky force nearby is waiting to strike. Yeah, Tsukiyama has been listening to their whole conversation and mistakes Kimi for Kaneki's girlfriend. So when Kaneki leaves, Tsukiyama kidnaps Kimi to use as bait for his master plan. After Tsukiyama reveals where he is hiding Kimi, Kaneki and Nishi team up to go rescue her. But of course, this is Tsukiyama we're talking about. So things go from bad to weird when he spits out his plans for Kaneki.
Do allow me to explain. I shall feast upon sweet Kaneki, but even as I do, I want him to feast upon her!
With Nishio being so weak and Kaneki lacking fighting skills, the two guys aren't exactly a match for Tsukiyama. But soon enough, Tuka shows up to save the day again. Yeah, she does that a lot. Still, because Tuka has been eating all that human food, she isn't in great condition either. During all this, Tsukiyama reveals that he had a crush on Tuka while they were working together at the Enteku Cafe years earlier. The three tried to hold him off, but he has been eating way better than they have, so his Kagune is far stronger. Neither of the three can activate their Kagune, so Tsukiyama makes easy work of them. especially Nishio, who gets repeatedly stomped on when he tries to stop Tsukiyama from getting to Kimi. Damn, he might be an average fighter, but he is a great boyfriend. But just as things look hopeless, Kaneki gives Tuka some of his blood, which is enough to get her to activate her Kagune. Now, the fight is really on. In episode 6, called Cloudburst, we get thrown right back into the middle of the fight. Now that Tuka has the energy she needs, she goes up against Tsukiyama in one of the best fight sequences in the entire first season. But in the end, it's Nishio who distracts Tsukiyama long enough for Tuka to send him packing. After the fight ends, Nishio crawls to where Tsukiyama has Kimi tied up. As the two lovebirds reunite after all the drama, Tuka says something that sends a chill down Nishio's spine. Kimi has seen too much and has to die. It's sad, but true. Now that Kimi knew they were all ghouls, she could go to the CCG and rat them out. So after Tuka gets Nishio away from Kimi, Tuka has to end her. But as she walks up to Kimi, something unexpected happens. Kimi tells Tuka her Kagune is beautiful. This is the first time Tuka has ever been complimented like this, and it stops her dead in her tracks. Beautiful? That was too much for Tuka to process, so she disappears, leaving Kimi unharmed. After rescuing Kimi, Nishio and Kaneki then team up again, but this time to serve the customers at Inteku. This is thanks to Yoshimura taking in Nishio so that he can heal his wounds. But things aren't as fortunate for Dr. Fueguchi, the guy who's been helping Yamori to replace his torture device. Ever since Yamori's last visit, Dr. Fueguchi's life has been an absolute nightmare. You see, after Dr. Fueguchi sent his wife Ryoku and his daughter Hinami to Enteku, he hoped that giving Yamori a new torture device would be enough for Yamori to leave him and his family alone, and maybe, just maybe, he could get to see his wife and daughter again. But let's be real here, Yamori is practically allergic to kindness. So after getting the new device, he thanks the doctor by casually throwing him through the office wall. We then find out that all of this chaos is being watched by CCG investigators Meido and Amon. They trail Jason all the way to Dr. Fueguchi's office, and now they have a chance to kill both ghouls. Still, the investigators can't keep up with an S-tier ghoul like Yamori. He simply entertains the fight, then disappears. After that, Dr. Fueguchi manages to crawl out of his office, but ends up getting caught by Mado and Amon. When Dr. Fueguchi tries to attack the investigators, Meido kills him and removes his Kagune. All while Dr. Fueguchi is holding a drawing from his daughter Hinami. As this is happening, Hinami is back at Enteku having an argument with her mom. Hinami really wants to see her dad, but Ryoku can't explain to her why this is so dangerous. The two end up forgiving each other, and Ryoku takes out Hinami to get a present. What Ryoku doesn't know though, is that Amon and Mado are close by searching for her and Hinami. Normally, rain dulls a ghoul's senses, but Hinami has a great sense of smell. So when she picks up her dad's scent, she runs right into Mado and Amon holding her dad's Kagune. Brutal. Realizing they were in a trap, Ryoku uses her Kagune to protect Hinami long enough to tell her to run. Episode 7, titled Captivity, picks up with Hinami running for her life, desperately trying to get back to Enteku. But she ends up bumping into somebody and falls down. This is when Kaneki, who was also outside, spots Hinami from across the street and runs over to her. As soon as Kaneki reaches where Hinami is, she tells them that the doves are about to kill her mom. So Kaneki follows Hinami back to the alleyway, but only just in time to see Ryoku get killed by Amon and Mado. Good God. When Tuka hears about this, let's just say she doesn't take it too well. Meanwhile, at the CCG headquarters, Amon and Mado present their evidence from tracking down Hinami. The investigators have already killed both of her parents. Now, they had the green light to get Hinami too. But before they can do that, Tuka has some unfinished business with them. Despite Yoshimura's warning not to take revenge, Tuka tracks down Amon and his co-investigator Kusaba. Yep, this guy, to their favorite noodle shop. As they walk out, Tuka, wearing her rabbit mask, attacks them, killing Kusaba in an instant. She would have taken out Amon too, if Mado didn't show up with his new Queen K. After getting outmatched by Mado, Tuka barely manages to escape him and returns to Enteku. When Yoshimura hears about Toku's disobedience, he simply turns his back on her, but Kaneki vows to help her instead. This is when Tuka comes up with the plan to lure the investigators into a sewage waterway, because it would be hard for them to use their queen keys in a small space. In episode 8, titled Circular, we see Mado and Amon hatch a plan to capture Tuka in the waterways. Apparently, Mado already knows that Tuka was trying to lure them in there to finish things off, so he's actually going there to get her instead. Their plan was to use the scent of Hinami's mom to trick Hinami into coming outside into the waterway as well. They knew that Tuka would come to rescue Hinami, which would give them a 2-for-1 deal. Yikes. This works perfectly, as Tuka and Kaneki team up to look for Hinami. This is also when Kaneki puts on his mask for the first time. Man, it looks so sick! After agreeing to split up, Amon runs into Kaneki while Mado sneaks up on Tuka and Hinami in the waterways. Both ghouls take 2 different approaches. Kaneki wants to stop the ghoul on human violence, so at first he allows Amon to use his queen keys to beat him up. But just before Amon kills him, Kaneki steals a bite from Amon, which gives him just enough strength to bring out his Kagune. Kaneki then warns Amon to run before he loses control of his Kagune. Mado, on the other hand, runs out of luck. Tuka was in no mood to spare any human life, especially his. So when Hinami uses her Kagune to break him apart, Tuka gladly finishes the job. After all that, Yomo finds Kaneki, Tuka, and Hinami and carries them back to Enteiku. Episode 9 is called Birdcage, and we see a flashback of Amon's early days at the CCG, as well as how he got saved from a harmless-looking ghoul by Inspector Mado. In episode 10, called Aogiri, things quiet down for a little while, but as usual, this doesn't last very long. A group of ghouls called the Aogiri Tree are shaking things up in Tokyo, and not in a good way. The Aogiri Tree sends Noro, this ghoul with the creepy smiley face mask, and the Bin brothers, who both have masks with cool patterns, to breach the CCG building in the 11th ward. After they kill everyone inside, Tatara, who is one of the leaders of the Aogiri Tree, creepily tells the CCG headquarters to come pick up their dead investigators. After doing this, Tatara joins Eto, the female leader of the Aogiri Tree, so that they can go and cause more destruction in Tokyo. I guess killing a building of CCG investigators isn't enough for one day. We then find out that they did this because the Aogiri have been searching the ward for Rize. Why? Well, I guess we'll find out about that soon enough. Back at the Enteiku, the squad gets an unexpected visitor. Meet Banjo, a ghoul from the 11th ward and a member of the Aogiri. But Banjo isn't just here for the coffee. He wants to find Rize. Turns out, Banjo has the biggest crush on Rize, which is why he knows that she loves coffee shops. So after tracking her down to the 20th ward, he knew she must have visited Enteiku. Well, Banjo gets his answer soon enough when he smells Rize on Kaneki. This causes Banjo to crash out, but our boy Kaneki has been learning a few moves and knocks Banjo out cold. Atta boy! After Banjo regains consciousness, he tells Kaneki to warn Rize that she should run for her life. Banjo then explains that the Aogiri Tree was formed a few months earlier, and basically took over the 11th ward from Banjo and his crew. Since then, the Aogiri Tree has been overpowering the doves and driving them out of the 11th ward. Even though Banjo doesn't know why the Aogiri are after Rize, he knows it can't be anything good. So he also warns everyone in Enteiku to leave before the Aogiri Tree shows up. The warning comes a little too late though, because in comes Ayato, Tuka's brother, who is also a high-ranking member of the Aogiri Tree. But wait. It gets worse. Turns out, Yamori has been following Banjo this entire time, which leads him straight into Enteiku. Yamori is also a high-ranking member of Aogiri, and even has his own crew of ghouls called the White Suits. So, when Yamori also smells Rize's scent on Kaneki, he does the logical thing and beats the life out of Kaneki, trashing the entire cafe in the process. After what feels like an eternity, Yamori then kidnaps Kaneki. When Yoshimura returns to Enteiku with Yomo, he calls a meeting with all his employees. In the meeting, Yoshimura explains that they will rescue Kaneki, but still he can't guarantee that they would be safe doing it. But this is our boy Kaneki we're talking about, so nobody minds risking a limb or two to save him. Of course, the team needs all the help they can get, so guess who also joins the rescue team?
Horror when I was told my best friend Kaneki's life is in grave danger. The low-life scum who captured him must pay.
Well, if there was anyone who wanted Kaneki safe and sound, it would be Tsukiyama. For his own twisted reasons, of course. Episode 11, titled High Spirits, picks up with Tuka voicing everyone's concern about Tsukiyama joining them in rescuing Kaneki. But Yoshimura explains how short they are on allies, so they don't have much choice but to trust Tsukiyama. As they plan their rescue mission, we catch up with Kaneki, who is being held and tortured by Yamori. According to lore, Yamori was captured and tortured by a crazy CCG agent years earlier, which caused him to have severe mental issues. Now that he is free, Yamori takes out his trauma on others through torturing them, just like his idol Jason Voorhees. Meanwhile, the CCG have now evacuated almost every human in the 11th Ward so that the war against the Aogiri tree can begin. The investigators have tracked down the Aogiri to an abandoned shopping mall in the district. This also happens to be where Jason is holding Kaneki, so Yashimura plans to use the CCG attack as a cover for rescuing Kaneki. The plan involves the Anteku squad dressing up in Aogiri tree robes and scattering in order to search for Kaneki. As the face-off between the CCG officers and the Aogiri tree starts, investigator Amon spots Tuka and identifies her as the ghoul responsible for killing Mado. Brandishing his Quinke, Amon takes a swing after Tuka, but as he does, he gets attacked by the Bin brothers. This allows Tuka to escape and continue looking for Kaneki. Speaking of Kaneki, our guy is somehow still breathing after all of the torture this Jason fanatic has put him through. It probably helps that Banjo and his friends who visited Kaneki last episode are all planning to break him out too, without Jason knowing, of course. But time is against them. Just as it looks like the CCG officers are about to finally take over the building, a presence makes itself known. Shinohara, the veteran CCG commander, tells his chief that the one-eyed owl is standing in front of them. This massive ghoul creature is a kakuja, which means its kagune is so advanced that it covers its entire body. But this only happens when a ghoul is a cannibal. The chief basically gives everyone there the opportunity to run if they feel like it, because it's more likely that they will die if they don't. Imagine being a CCG officer and your boss tells you it's okay to run away. Anyway, after this, something even more interesting happens. As the episode closes, we get a small glimpse of Kaneki's hair, and it's white. This leads us right into the last episode of the first season. Ghoul, brace yourself, it's about to get real crazy in here. The episode doesn't even have an intro, we just go straight to where we left off. Kaneki is slowly losing his mind as Yamori starts taking his fingers and toes off, just so Kaneki can regrow them. Then, as Kaneki slowly blacks out, he remembers the advice his mom told him when he was younger.
Ken, it's okay to feel sadness from loss. As long as you remember to stay kind, you'll find joy again.
As Kaneki is hallucinating, he sees Rize, who tells him to stop listening to his mom and being so forgiving. But Kaneki isn't ready to embrace his darkest emotions. That is, until he starts revisiting his childhood memories. While Yamori mercilessly chops Kaneki's fingers and toes, Kaneki begins to look back. He starts remembering how his mom was nice to everyone, and how, just because of that habit of hers, she worked herself to death. As Kaneki resists the urge to ignore his mother's advice, Rize reminds him that soon all of his friends will be dead if Kaneki doesn't tap into his dark side. This is exactly what Yamori wants. He knows that if he pushes Kaneki far enough, he'll break mentally. So, after he gets bored of taking Kaneki's fingers and toes, Yamori decides to have Kaneki choose which of Banjo's friends to kill. Yep, Yamori already knows that they were trying to rescue Kaneki. Kaneki chooses not to participate in Yamori's twisted mind games, and for that, Yamori kills both of Banjo's friends in front of him, just for the fun of it. Damn. This was the final straw. After promising himself to not let Rize's energy control him, Kaneki unleashes his full Kagune. And we get to witness Kaneki go through a transformation where his hair turns white and his whole personality changes. No more shy bookworm college student. Kaneki was now a proper ghoul, and he wasted no time in letting Jason know. As Yamori comes to kill him, Kaneki breaks free and wraps his chain around Yamori's neck, then drops the best one-liner in the season, all in about like 20 seconds.
Why don't you chew on this?
But our boy Kaneki is just getting started here. Even when Yamori grabs Kaneki's leg, Kaneki simply breaks it, just so he can spin kick Jason with the other leg. Soon enough, Kaneki has Yamori defeated, and this is where we see the biggest change in Kaneki. As Yamori is lying there in shame, Kaneki starts torturing Yamori, and then, well, he eats him. What a way to end the first season, seriously. The first episode of Season 2 is called New Surge. As many fans have noted, this season does deviate a bit from the manga, but the story continues from where we left off. The war between the CCG and the Aogiri tree at the abandoned shopping mall is now in full swing. Commander Shinohara and his men are cornered by the one-eyed owl, so they have no choice but to bust out their Arata armor. The Arata armor is basically an upgraded Queen-K that's created from a Kakuja, aka is still getting beat down by the owl. His attacks are useless. Just when it looks like game over, Arima drops in like a calm silver-haired storm. Remember this guy? Yeah, he's the same blue-haired officer who fought the owl in Mado's flashback. This time, he pulled a Kaneki with that hair transformation. But he's not here to just look badass, he's here to give the owl a really difficult time. Arima dodges the owl's attack with style, slashes him up with ease, and cuts off his arm without even breaking a sweat. The owl panics, swallows Yoshimura, swallows him whole, and then flies away. Kaneki, bloody but determined, limps towards Anteku, hoping he's not too late. Nearby, Akira stumbles upon Amon's broken Queen-K and her heart sinks. And finally, in the last shocking twist of the episode, the owl coughs up Yoshimura and shapeshifts back into their human form, revealing that the one-eyed owl is none other than Sen Takatsuki herself. She basically has 3 different identities now. To humans, she's Sen Takatsuki, an amazing author. To Aogiri, she's Eto. To the CCG, she's the one-eyed owl. Talk about a personality disorder. The last episode of Season 2 is called Ken. At long last, Kaneki and his childhood friend Hide reunite inside Anteku. As Kaneki tries to hide his Kakugan, Hide casually reveals that he knew Kaneki was a ghoul this whole time, and it's no big deal. What really hurt him was that Kaneki suddenly stopped hanging out with him. Kaneki listens, stunned, but their chat is cut short when Hide suddenly collapses. Turns out he's been hiding some serious injuries. Just then, Tuka shows up and sees the cafe in flames, and finds Kaneki carrying Hide's unconscious body through the wreckage. Kaneki walks through the aftermath of the war zone, eyes heavy with sadness, and then faces Investigator Arima, the ultimate CCG Reaper, all alone. Whether it's to hand over Hide and surrender, or to fight some more, we have no idea. Time skips forward. Tuka is seen opening a new cafe with a clean new name, Ri. The battles, the pain, the memories, they're behind her now. And with that, Season 2 comes to an end. We head straight into Season 3, but the storyline isn't where we left it last season. You see, Season 2 doesn't only deviate from the manga, it also condenses a lot of the story into a few episodes. So here is some lore to keep in mind going into Season 3. Investigator Amon is killed in his fight with Kaneki, and Shinohara is badly injured by Takatsuki, who is the real one-eyed owl and also Yoshimura's daughter. After Kaneki delivers Hide to Investigator Arima, it's assumed Kaneki is captured by the CCG and rehabilitated. During this time, Kaneki loses his memories and is given a new identity by the CCG. His new name is Heisei Sasaki. To keep things simple, I'll stick to calling him Sasaki for plot reasons. Okay, now let's continue. The first episode of Season 3 is called Start, Those Who Hunt, and we're introduced to the CCG's Quink Squad. This new group of diehard CCG officers are built different. Literally. The CCG is now surgically implanting Ghoul Kagune into their officers. This is likely because they've studied how Sasaki became a half-ghoul, which kinda explains why the CCG made him the leader of the Quink Squad. Alright, so the Quink Squad is out hunting a super creepy ghoul called Torso. This guy has a twisted thing for eating only the torsos of women and leaving the rest behind. Lovely, right? Ugh. Leading the mission is Kuki Yuri, the Quink's captain who takes himself way too seriously, and his partner Ginshi Shirazu, who's more bark than bite. While investigating, they run into this eccentric photographer named Chie Hori. She casually drops an important lead. Torso is actually working as a taxi driver. She gives them this lead in exchange for a very personal item belonging to Sasaki. Meanwhile, Toru Mutsuki, another squad member, ends up finding Torso first, and things go south really fast. Toru gets attacked, and that kicks Fuki and Ginshi into action. They set up this big roadblock to catch Torso, and it almost works. But then out of nowhere, this guy shows up. Serpent. This powerful ghoul crashes the party, wipes the officers like it's nothing, and Torso gets away clean. Just as the situation spirals out of control, Sasaki steps in to fight Serpent. However, he starts hallucinating his old self, his Ken Kaneki self. That suppressed memory of his former self starts whispering all kinds of dark thoughts into his head. It's like a full-on mental breakdown mid-battle. The pressure pushes Sasaki to his limit, and he finally snaps, unleashing his Kagune. The next episode is titled Member Fragments. After using his Kagune to attack, Sasaki rips off Serpent's mask, only to find out it's someone from his past. Turns out Serpent is actually Nishio, and although Sasaki doesn't fully remember him, Nishio casually drops a bomb by calling him Kaneki. Just like that, Sasaki's brain short-circuits. A flood of buried memories slams into him, and he starts losing it, practically ready to attack his own team. We then begin to see him being tormented mentally by Kaneki, in the same way Kaneki was tormented by Rize in Season 1. Thankfully, Akira Mado shows up and hits him with a tranquilizer. Once Sasaki chills out and comes back to his senses, he shakes things up in the Quink squad. He throws Kuki out of the captain's seat for insubordination. Kuki has been acting up lately because he feels he's not living up to his true potential. Sasaki hands the captain title over to Ginshi, the loud but well-meaning blowhard. Later, Sasaki trains with his boss/mentor Arima, and admits that he is spooked by his old Kaneki memories creeping back in like bad dreams. Arima doesn't want to talk about all that, so he changes topic. Meanwhile, our torso-loving creep, Torso, gets recruited by Ayato to join the Aogiri tree. Torso's all in, not because he cares about the cause, but because it gives him a shot at capturing poor Toru, who he's creepily obsessed with now. On the CCG side, Sasaki, Ginshi, and Toru are now chasing down another psycho ghoul called Nutcracker, who has a rather painful signature move. She works in the red light district and likes to crack the nuts of her victims. Good lord, ow! While taking a break, they stop by this cozy little cafe called Ri, run by none other than Tuka. Sasaki walks in, locks eyes with Tuka, and his soul practically screams, "I know her." After just a single sip of her coffee, he starts crying without even knowing why. He also can't stop thinking about how she might be the most beautiful person he's ever seen. Let's just say the coffee wasn't the only thing brewing. Episode 3 is called Fresh Eve. In the opening scene, Rosewald, Tsukiyama's dramatic, ultra-loyal assistant, shows up with a very special gift, Sasaki's underwear. It's the personal item that was collected by none other than the photographer, Chie Hori. Being the creep that he is, Tsukiyama sniffs it, and is crushed because he didn't recognize the scent as Kaneki's. Yeah, like, that's the thing to be disappointed about when you sniff somebody's underwear. Meanwhile, Quink Squad is still on the Nutcracker case. They finally managed to drag another member, the lazy gamer called Psycho, out of her room, and the team links up with Juzu and his crew. They all learn that Nutcracker hangs out at a sketchy underground nightclub, so they plan to infiltrate. From their report, the Nutcracker is involved in the human trafficking business, so the male members of the squad have to cross-dress to gain her attention. And yes, it's just as awkward and hilarious as it sounds. On his part, Kuki skips the field trip to do some top-secret testing on his new and improved Kagune. He really wants to be as powerful as his big boss Kaneki. Inside the nightclub, things get even weirder. We see two members of the Clowns, a deadly ghoul faction that wears clown masks, Nico and Roma Hoito. They spot Sasaki and instantly recognize him as Kaneki, but they're low-key disappointed. Roma sighs that this is a soft version of Kaneki and is boring, and wonders aloud if a little death might bring the real Kaneki back. Back on the mission, a drunk Toru flirts her way into Nutcracker's trust and scores an invite to the ghoul auction, where humans are sold to ghouls like groceries at the supermarket. Meanwhile, Aogiri trees got their eyes on the ghoul auction as well. Eto tells Ayato to act as bodyguard for Big Madam, the same fat psychopath we first met in Juzu's flashback. Ayato agrees, reluctantly, and drags along creepy Torso, who's still obsessed with Toru like a crazy stalker. The next episode, Main Auction, takes us deep into the twisted world of the ghoul black market, and it's just as wild and horrifying as you'd expect. The show kicks off with 3 clown ghouls acting like auctioneers at a very creepy ghoul gathering. First item on the list? An A-list celebrity. The crowd goes wild. But the next item is even more shocking. It's Toru Mutsuki, drugged and tied up on stage. Last he remembers, he was chilling in a taxi with Nutcracker. Torso, who's unhealthily obsessed with Toru, completely loses it when he sees him on display. Big Madam's got her eyes locked on him too, and isn't planning to back down, no matter the cost. Even Rosewald thinks buying this rare one-eyed ghoul might finally snap Tsukiyama out of his Kaneki-induced depression. Bidding war begins, and Big Madam snags Toru for a cool 200 million yen like it's pocket change. Then comes the third auction item, a sweet-looking girl. But as she's about to be auctioned off, she pulls out knives and absolutely shreds one of the clown MC's face before hurling blades into the crowd. Absolute chaos erupts. Upon realizing that the CCG is crashing the party, everyone panics. Big Madam takes a good look at the knife-wielding woman and realizes it's Juzu, the kid she used to torment.
Let's get out of here, madam! What is Juzo doing here?
And what she doesn't know is that she's the main target of this operation. Meanwhile, Toru takes the opportunity to slip away, but before he can get too far, he runs into Rosewald, who tries to snatch him back as a gift for Tsukiyama. Enter Torso, who leaps in to save Toru, but ends up getting wrecked by Rosewald. Toru keeps running. As the auction spirals into chaos, Eto watches from far away with her fellow Aogiri big shots. With a sinister smile, she decides it's time to enter the fray. Things are about to get even bloodier. The next episode is called Press, Night of Scattering. Toru is wandering the hallways, still hurting from the earlier attack by Rosewald. Rosewald catches up and realizes something truly fascinating. Toru's wounds have completely healed, which means his master Tsukiyama can eat Toru again and again. Damn. Rosewald lunges forward, but just in time, Sasaki swoops in to save Toru. A full-on brawl breaks out. Sasaki, Kuki, and Ginji tag team Rosewald while Psycho shields Toru. Meanwhile, a familiar character is wreaking havoc in the building. Remember Takizawa from Season 2? He was reported dead by the CCG after the battle against the One-Eyed Owl. But he's actually alive and a one-eyed ghoul now. Time skip shenanigans. He's also one of the big shots in the Aogiri. And let's just say, he's way different from his human self. He's cleaving people's heads off left and right, and terrorizing his former co-workers. Back with the Quink Squad, they actually managed to knock out Rosewald. But before they can finish him off, Rosewald gets saved by another ghoul friend of his, and the two escape. Man, people in this show need to start committing when they knock people out. Like, you can't just sit there and do nothing. Meanwhile, Nutcracker straight up wrecks the CCG squad that was sent after her. By wrecked, I mean everyone got completely wiped out. So now it's up to the Quink Squad to stop Nutcracker. While Toru and Kuki sneak off to track down more ghouls, Kuki starts going too hyped up and feral, unleashing his Kagune like a madman on everyone in sight, but loses control and ends up facing Big Madam. She claps him, pretty badly actually. Toru rushes in just in time to see Kuki about to become Big Madam's dinner, and just when you think that's it, Ginshi and Psycho run in to none other than Takizawa. And luckily, Sasaki also appears and activates his Kagune, ready to throw hands with another one-eyed ghoul. The next episode is called Turn in the End. As the fight continues between the two one-eyed ghouls, it becomes pretty clear that Sasaki is getting absolutely clobbered. And just when you think things can't get worse, Sasaki starts hallucinating Ken Kaneki again. Yeah, that guy. His other self is clawing back, and it's making the fight a mental mess. Meanwhile, over on the Quink side of things, Ginshi and Psycho finally take down the deadly Nutcracker in a combo attack. Elsewhere, Big Madam is having her own battle against Kuki and Toru. Kuki gets so overwhelmed that he snaps, accidentally stabbing Toru in a wild mix of grief and rage. But instead of freaking out, Toru calmly wraps Kuki in his Kagune, telling him that it's okay and everything will be fine. As Big Madam is about to attack, Juzu shows up with other CCG officers. Now, this should be Juzu's revenge moment, right? You'd think so, but he just can't get himself to attack her, even going as far as saying he harbors no resentment towards her. Luckily, the other CCG officers swoop in and finish Big Madam for good. After that's over, we see this weird, mysterious ghoul wearing a mask. Let's call him Scarecrow, just wandering around the auction building. He stumbles into the control room and starts pressing random buttons. Unfortunately, one of them is the building-wide intercom, and suddenly, everyone can hear Sasaki's painful screams echoing through the halls. Damn. Hinami is also here, and after hearing it, she immediately rushes towards the source. She's now a member of Aogiri, having left Anteiku 2 years ago. Although Sasaki doesn't recognize her, she doesn't hesitate. She jumps into the fight, taking on Takizawa to protect Sasaki. This is the breaking point for Sasaki. Hearing his friends and remembering his pain, he finally accepts that he is Kaneki. He and Takizawa clash in a brutal Kagune versus Kagune battle, both of them impaling each other in a violent poetic ending. They both collapse, bloodied and broken, and with that, the auction war is all but over. The next episode is called Mind, Days of Recollection. Hinami's luck runs out when investigator Arima's squad swoops in and arrests her. She's about to be executed until Sasaki makes a last-minute plea that saves her life. So, instead of the chopping block, Hinami gets a one-way ticket to Cochlea Prison. A few weeks go by, and things start looking up for the Quink squad. Everyone's getting promoted, with Sasaki now upgraded to senior investigator. That same night, Sasaki receives a little gift box. Kaneki's old mask and a signed copy of Sen Takatsuki's book. Disturbed and confused, Sasaki wanders into the Ri Cafe, where Tuka casually serves him coffee like it's just another Tuesday. Sasaki doesn't recognize her, but something about that cup hits really hard. He then dives deep into investigating this Kaneki guy. He even has a vision of Yoshimura and Enteiku. His old life is knocking louder than ever. The next episode is titled Take, One Who Writhes, and Tsukiyama is in rough shape. No matter how many humans he devours, the hunger just won't go away. And now, his Kagune is completely out of control. Rosewald is getting increasingly worried and would do anything to help his master. Meanwhile, Ayato is trying to convince Tatora to let him rescue Hinami from Cochlea Prison, but Tatora denies his request without a second thought. Aogiri Tree is no longer in the business of rescue missions apparently.